Mystical City of God, translated from the original Spanish by Michael Kress, read by the translator. Dramatizations are also included. This is the full 4-volume Mystical City of God. Book 1, Chapter 8. Continuing the explanation with the interpretation of Revelation, Chapter 12. The text of Chapter 12 of Revelation states, "A great sign appeared in the sky, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant, and she cried out in labor, in agony to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns on its heads. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that it might devour her child the moment he was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. And her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But they were not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, 'Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters, who accuses them before our God day and night, has been hurled down. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows that his time is short.' When the dragon saw that he had been hurled to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. The woman was given the 2 wings of a great eagle, so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, where she would be taken care of for a time, times and half a time, out of the serpent's reach. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river, to overtake the woman and sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast their testimony about Jesus. And the dragon stood on the shore of the sea." Thus far is the letter of the evangelist. He speaks in the present tense because the vision revealed to him described events that had already occurred. The evangelist writes, "A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head." This sign truly appeared in heaven by the will of God, who revealed it plainly to both the good and evil angels. It was shown to them so that, by witnessing it, they might determine their will either to obey his divine precepts or to rebel against them. This sign served as a manifestation of how wondrously God intended to exalt human nature. Although the angels had already been informed about the mystery of the hypostatic union, God chose to display this mystery more explicitly in a pure creature, namely the most perfect and holy being who, after Christ our Lord, would be elevated above all creation. The sign also reassured the good angels that, despite the disobedience of the wicked ones, God would not abandon his plan to create humanity. The humanized Word and his mother would provide infinitely greater justification for carrying out this decree than the disobedience of the fallen angels could provide against it. This sign was also like a heavenly rainbow, akin to the one placed in the clouds after the flood, symbolizing God's assurance. It signified that even if men were to sin like the angels and become disobedient, they would not face the same irrevocable punishment. Instead, God would provide them with a remedy and salvation through this extraordinary sign. It was as though he was saying to the angels, "I will not punish these creatures in the same manner as I did the rebellious angels, for from human nature will come forth this woman. In her womb my only begotten Son will take flesh, becoming the restorer of my friendship, appeasing my justice, and opening the path to happiness that sin will have closed. In testimony of this, the Most High, after punishing the disobedient angels, revealed himself to the good angels in the presence of that great sign. Appearing as though consoled and appeased from the anger provoked by Lucifer's arrogance, he seemed, in human terms, to find delight in the presence of the Queen of Heaven, represented in that image. Through this, he implied to the holy angels that, through Christ and his mother, he would bestow upon humanity the grace and gifts that the apostates had forfeited through their rebellion. This great sign also had another profound effect on the good angels. Having contended with Lucifer and his followers in what could be understood as a cosmic battle, the holy angels had been, in a sense, afflicted and saddened. To console them and renew their joy, the Most High allowed them to behold this sign, which filled them with gladness. Their essential glory, already secure in their obedience, was thus augmented with an additional accidental joy as a reward for their victory over Lucifer. When the holy angels saw this rod of mercy, a sign of peace, like the golden scepter extended by King Ahasuerus to Queen Esther, Esther 4 verse 11, they understood that the law of punishment would not apply to them, as they had faithfully obeyed the divine will and precepts. In this vision, the holy angels also gained deeper understanding of the mysteries and sacraments of the Incarnation that were hidden within it, as well as the formation of the militant church and its members. They realized their own role in assisting and guarding the human race, defending men from their enemies, and guiding them toward eternal happiness. Furthermore, they understood that the grace they themselves possessed had been preserved by the virtue of Christ, foreseen in the divine mind as the humanized Word. This revelation filled the holy angels with a profound sense of wonder and joy. Just as this revelation brought immense joy and consolation to the good angels, it caused great torment for the wicked ones. It served as the beginning and a part of their punishment, for they now understood what they had lost. They realized that this woman would one day defeat them and crush their heads, as foretold. All these mysteries, and others that cannot be fully expressed, were revealed to the evangelist in this chapter. Yet he presented them in symbolic language and enigmas, awaiting the time when they would be fully understood. The sun with which the woman is said to be clothed represents the true sun of justice. This signified to the angels the unwavering will of the Most High, who determined to surround this woman with his grace, shielding and protecting her with his invincible power. The moon beneath her feet symbolizes the division between night and day, between the night of sin, represented by the moon, and the day of grace, symbolized by the sun. The angels understood that the night of sin and guilt would remain beneath her feet, while the day of grace would forever clothe and adorn her. Moreover, because all mortals are subject to a decrease in grace due to their frailty, this decline would never affect her. She was to stand above all men and angels, unique in being untouched by the waning of grace. She alone would be free from the darkness of Lucifer and the guilt of Adam. She would triumph over them, treading them underfoot, never allowing them to prevail against her. By placing all guilt and the effects of original sin beneath her feet, the Lord revealed her superiority before all the angels. The good angels recognized and revered her, while the fallen angels, though unable to comprehend all the mysteries of the vision, were struck with fear at the sight of this woman, even before she was to exist. The crown of 12 stars represents all the virtues that adorned this Queen of heaven and earth. The number 12 holds particular significance, symbolizing the 12 tribes of Israel, encompassing all the elect and predestined, as referenced in Revelation 7 verses 4 to 8. Since all the gifts, graces, and virtues of the chosen ones were to be found in their fullness in the Queen, she is depicted with this crown of 12 stars, signifying her surpassing excellence and her role as the preeminent among all. She is described as pregnant because, in the presence of all the angels, both for the joy of the good and the punishment of the wicked who resisted the divine will and these mysteries, it was revealed that the most Holy Trinity had chosen this extraordinary woman to be the mother of the only begotten Son of the Father. This dignity of being the mother of the Word is the highest honor and the foundation of all her other excellences. This mystery was presented to the angels as a treasure held within her, as the most Holy Trinity, though indivisible, entrusted the humanity of the Word to her alone. While only the second person of the Trinity took on human flesh, the presence of the entire Trinity remained inseparable and fully united. She gave birth to voices because, although her dignity and this profound mystery were at first veiled, so that God might be born humbly and in poverty, this hidden treasure eventually echoed loudly throughout the world. The first ripple of this great mystery caused King Herod and the Magi to leave their homes and countries in search of him, unsettling some hearts and stirring others with profound affection. As the fruit of her womb grew and was ultimately raised on the cross, the voices resounded even more powerfully, spreading from east to west and from north to south. The voice of this woman was indeed heard far and wide, for she gave birth to the Word of the Eternal Father. And she was tormented to give birth. This does not mean that her childbirth involved pain, as such suffering was impossible in this divine birth. Rather, it refers to the profound sorrow and anguish felt by the Blessed Mother as she gave birth to the deified body of her Son. She knew that he would suffer greatly, subjecting himself to the will of the Eternal Father in order to atone for the sins of the world and pay for what he had not committed. She fully understood this through her knowledge of the Scriptures and the science granted to her. By natural maternal love for her son, such knowledge caused her deep sorrow, though she remained perfectly aligned with the will of the Eternal Father. This torment also includes the pain of knowing that she would be deprived, for extended periods, of the physical presence of her treasure, her son. While she conceived him in her soul through divinity, she also experienced the deep longing and separation from his most holy humanity. Although the Most High exempted her from the guilt of sin, he did not exempt her from the works and suffering corresponding to the immense reward prepared for her. Thus, the pains of this birth, Genesis 3 verse 16, were not the result of sin, as they are for Eve's descendants, but rather arose from the intense and perfect love of this divine mother for her only and most holy Son. For the holy angels, these mysteries were a source of praise and admiration, while for the fallen angels, they marked the beginning of their punishment. And another sign was seen in heaven. A great red dragon appeared, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its heads were 7 diadems. With its tail it swept away 1/3 of the stars of heaven and cast them down to the earth. After the events described, the punishment of Lucifer and his followers ensued. Because of his blasphemies against the woman revealed in the heavenly vision, Lucifer was transformed from a beautiful angel into a hideous and terrifying dragon, a punishment that also manifested visibly in his appearance. He appeared with 7 heads, symbolizing 7 legions or divisions of the angels who followed him in rebellion and fell alongside him. Each head represented a principality or group, and Lucifer assigned a leader to each, charging them to incite and promote the 7 capital sins: pride, envy, greed, wrath, lust, gluttony, and sloth. These sins, the principal vices, are like the heads of rebellion rising against God. The 7 diadems on the dragon's heads symbolize the reward for Lucifer's wickedness and the evil he orchestrated, punishment that fittingly corresponded to his malice. These diadems represent his claim to dominance over the 7 deadly sins, which he and his followers became the instigators of among mankind. The 10 horns of the dragon's heads signify the triumphs of iniquity and malice that Lucifer vainly attributes to himself. They symbolize his self-glorification, arrogance, and perverse exaltation, which he uses to deceive others. To ensnare the other angels, Lucifer offered them deceitful promises of friendship, false principalities, and empty rewards. These were filled with ignorance and error, enticing them to join his rebellion. The tail of the dragon symbolizes this deceit and manipulation, by which he swept away 1/3 of the stars of heaven, the angels who chose to follow him. These angels, once stars destined to shine with eternal brilliance alongside the righteous, were instead cast down as punishment. They were thrown to the earth and ultimately to the center of it, hell, where they are condemned to eternal darkness, forever deprived of the light and joy of God's presence. And the dragon stood before the woman, ready to devour the son she was to give birth to. Lucifer's pride was so immense that he arrogantly declared his intention to exalt his throne to the heights. In the presence of the woman revealed in the vision, he boasted,
"That son, born of a nature inferior to mine, I will devour and destroy. Against him I will raise a side of followers loyal to me. I will spread doctrines that oppose his laws and teachings, and I will wage perpetual war against him."
The Lord, however, responded to Lucifer, "That woman will indeed give birth to a son who will rule the nations with an iron rod. This son will not only be hers, but will also be my son, both true man and true God. He will be strong and will crush your pride, breaking your head. He will judge you and all who follow you with unyielding justice. Your haughty and vain thoughts will be shattered, and this son will be exalted to my throne, seated at my right hand. I will make his enemies a footstool under his feet, and he will triumph over them. He will be glorified as a righteous man who, though God, has done everything for his creatures. All creation will recognize him and give him reverence and glory. But you, miserable one, will come to know the day of my wrath." The Lord continued, "This woman will be placed in a state of solitude, accompanied only by me." This solitude of the woman signified her supreme holiness and exemption from all sin. Though she was of the same human nature as all mortals, she surpassed even the angels in grace, gifts, and merits. She stood alone, singular among all creatures, without peer in her sanctity. This solitude also refers to her unique purity, so far removed from sin that Lucifer the dragon could not even perceive her holiness. From her conception she was set apart, beyond his reach. The Most High declared, "From the moment this woman exists, she will be my chosen and unique one. I exempt her from the jurisdiction of her enemies and assign her a place of unparalleled grace, where she will be nourished for 1,260 days." This number of days refers to a specific period of the Queen of Heaven's life, during which she received extraordinary and singular spiritual benefits, incomparable and beyond human comprehension. These graces culminated in the final years of her earthly life, as will be explained in detail later. During this time, her soul was nourished so divinely that it is beyond the limits of human understanding to fully grasp. These final years were the crowning culmination of all the other graces and blessings she received throughout her life, and the evangelist points to these days with specific reference.